Mitt Romney's very bad day just got a whole lot worse tonight. Conservatives are so mad at his campaign, they're demanding heads roll and fast.
Anyone who donates to Mitt Romney, and I mean the big donors, ought to call Mitt Romney and say if Andrea Saul isn't fired and off the campaign tomorrow, they are not giving another dime, because it is not worth fighting for this man, if this is the kind of spokesman he has, to respond to an ad like this by citing health care in Massachusetts.
Listen, but what we're watching and witnessing here.
No, I'm serious about this.
I'm serious. I know you're serious.
There's no point in your doing your show.
I agree with you.
There's no point in us going to a convention and pushing for this man if he's employing morons like this. This ad is the turning point, and she has nearly snatched victory from the jaws of defeat.
Here is the point.
Off the campaign.
Good evening. I'm Alex Wagner in for Lawrence O'Donnell. Moments ago, Ann Coulter appeared on Fox News, where she called on Mitt Romney to immediately fire his spokeswoman for remarks she made earlier today.
Obviously, it's unfortunate when anyone loses their job. This particular case was a plant that was closed years after Governor Romney left the company. And to that point, if people had been in Massachusetts under Governor Romney's health care plan, they would have had health care.
In response to Saul's remarks, Eric Erickson, the conservative editor-in-chief of RedState.com, tweeted, "OMG. This might just be the moment Mitt Romney lost the election. Wow." Erickson later deemed Saul's comments the read my lips moment of betrayal. A senior writer for the conservative Washington Examiner tweeted, "Not sure if the Romney camp realizes what a huge opening they've just created for Democrats on Obamacare." And here is Rush Limbaugh's reaction.
If people had been in Massachusetts under Governor Romney's health care plan, they would have had health care.
That's the potential gold mine for the Obamaites. Because they can say, well, yeah, and Romney cares was the foundation for our plan, Obamacare, which they are already out there saying.
A conservative editor for RedState.com tweets today, "What conservatives are doing regarding Andrea Saul's comments is the same as how you housebreak your dog. Romney needs to know not to go there." Here is the dog urinating on the carpet today in Iowa.
We've got to do some reforms in health care, and I have some experience doing that, as you know, and I know how to make a better setting than the one we have in health care.
With 90 days until the presidential election, a new Washington Post poll shows President Obama leading Mitt Romney on favorability by a 19-point spread. 53% view President Obama favorably, 43% view him unfavorably. 40% view Mitt Romney favorably, while 49% view him unfavorably. Romney's unfavorable score has increased 18 points this year. The pollster notes that Mitt Romney is laboring under the lowest personal popularity ratings for a presumptive presidential nominee in midsummer election year polls back to, wait for it, the year 1984. And today, a new Reuters poll shows that among registered voters nationally, President Obama leads Mitt Romney by 7 points, 49 to 42%. Joining me now, the Huffington Post's Sam Stein and MSNBC's Karen Finney. Thank you both for joining me tonight. But before we get to anything, let us listen to Ann Coulter once again.
Anyone who donates to Mitt Romney, and I mean the big donors, ought to call Mitt Romney and say if Andrea Saul isn't fired and off the campaign tomorrow, they are not giving another dime, because it is not worth fighting for this man, if this is the kind of spokesman he has, to respond to an ad like this by citing health care in Massachusetts.
Listen, but what we're watching and witnessing here.
No, I'm serious about this.
I'm serious. I know you're serious.
There's no
I agree
point
with
in
you.
your doing your show.
I agree with you.
There's no point in us going to a convention and pushing for this man if he's employing morons like this. This ad is the turning point, and she has nearly snatched victory from the jaws of defeat.
Here is the point.
Off the campaign.
And here is what Coulter said later in the show about how Republicans outside the Romney campaign are better at countering the Obama campaign's attacks.
We could do it better without the drag of Romney's campaign spokesman, who, by the way, came from the McCain campaign. Great idea.
Sam Stein, is this what is officially known as going nuclear? This is actually a two-part question. And secondly, does this make Eric Fernstrom's comments about Mitt Romney being an Etch-a-Sketch candidate, does that look like a walk in the park compared to this?
This is the most over-the-top reaction. I mean, what are we talking about? We're talking about a spokesperson who, and there's a strong likelihood that Andrea was told to say this by her superiors, that this wasn't her going rogue, so to speak, that this was a talking point. Listen, a lot of conservatives have been complaining for weeks now that Romney's not out there touting all the good things he's done, not just at Bain, but as the governor of Massachusetts. The second that someone says something about his signature accomplishment as governor of Massachusetts, which is health care, conservatives go crazy. I mean, Ann Coulter is talking out of her mind right now. Why would Andrea Saul need to be fired for this campaign to go on, or for donors to support Mitt Romney? Isn't the cause a bit bigger than one singular spokesman? I get that she's upset. I get that Andrea Saul probably stepped on a very big moment for the Romney campaign where they could have focused on Bill Burton's ad. But to act like Andrea Saul needs to be sort of sacrificed here is just totally absurd, and it's wrong.
But
it's unfair.
Wouldn't you say that's a gross miscalculation if she was in fact on message? I mean, you have conservatives of all stripes,
yes,
real
but
base
listen,
anger about
but
this.
you got to that with your first point, right? Which was that the boss of Andrea Saul, Eric Fernstrom, who runs communications for the Romney campaign, had said essentially that when you get to a general election, you have etch-a-sketch moments, and by that we could presume he means that you start to shift focus. Everything that Romney did during the primary, which included a huge disavowal of his health care law in Massachusetts, becomes sort of obsolete when you go to the general by Fernstrom's calculation. So if Eric Fernstrom isn't going to be fired for that offense, why should Andrea Saul be fired for this one?
Karen, let's bring you in here. In terms of how this plays out, Eric Erickson had lots to say on this. He did say at one point, he tweeted, conservatives have put aside their distrust of Romney on this issue in the name of beating Barack Obama. They thought he and his campaign team had gotten the message and the hints. Consider the scab picked, the wound opened, and the distrust trickling out again. A delicious visual picture he's painting there. What do you make of the contention that this is a bid to get independents on board?
Let's be very clear what this is about. These guys are angry because Andrea Saul committed the cardinal sin in that she forgot not to tell the truth. That's what this is all about. Because the truth is, as Sam said, Governor Romney, Romneycare, passed health care in Massachusetts. That's the truth. Unfortunately, in the Romney campaign, you're not supposed to tell the truth. You're not supposed to, similarly with Eric Fernstrom's Etch-a-Sketch, right? That's the truth. You're not supposed to tell the truth. So, I mean, that's her sin. Let's be very clear. And, particularly when you see it's validated even more so by red states suggesting that, it's picked a scab. That means, shh. We're just not going to tell anybody who this guy really is and see if we can squeak on through to get Barack Obama out. I mean, that's why her reaction is so over the top and sort of the harshness of the reaction from the right. And that's why people are angry. They're angry that she actually told the truth and forgot that she's not supposed to. But the second thing I do want to say, I'm going to say it a little tougher than Sam did. It is outrageous that there is this kind of reaction to what Andrea Saul said. And, you guys know I am not one who would normally take up for Republican spokespeople. But if they're going to fire her, it's very sexist to say that. And then they didn't say that when it came to Eric Fernstrom, who not only made the Etch-a-Sketch comment, but has on multiple occasions made far greater foot-in-mouth disease caused problems for this campaign. So if we're going to talk about firing people who are going to make big mistakes that are bad for the campaign, they should be looking at the men as well.
Karen, you have stood in the role of spokesperson. Do you think that this could be, in fact, that Andrea was on message?
I don't, Sam and I were talking about this in the makeup room. I don't think so. I don't get the sense that this was the kind of thing where before she went out there, she said, here's what I'm going to say. Is everybody okay with this? Particularly watching the tape, it seemed more like, on the spot, she sort of thought of it and put it out there. Because again, remember, when it comes to Mitt Romney's health care, supposedly the way they're trying to, thread the needle and split the hairs is just that was the Massachusetts solution. That may not be right for everybody, but the idea of having some kind of health care reform isn't a bad thing. So I think she messed up in the context of this campaign. But again, I don't think that this was an intentional comment.
Sam, as we talk about how this sort of makes its way through the world and into the ether, one thing is probably for certain, and that is that the Obama campaign is going to make hay out of that. The president has already sort of danced around the subject and touched it a little bit today at a campaign event earlier today. Let's play that sound with President Obama talking about Romney's health care plan.
He wants to kill Obamacare. I'm implementing Obamacare because it was the right thing to do. If that's what Mr. Romney wants to get rid of, despite the fact that he did the same thing in Massachusetts, it worked pretty well. then that's a choice in this election.
So, Sam, is it a day? Is it a matter of minutes? Is it a matter of hours before this becomes a new web ad from the Obama campaign?
I mean, yeah, it looks like this thing could take off at any moment. I mean, the visual of one campaign, the Romney campaign, talking positively about Romney Care and getting just absolutely hammered by their base, and the other campaign, the Obama campaign, talking positively about Obamacare, ostensibly the same bill, and getting absolutely huge cheers from his base, is striking. And it goes to show you that Republicans never actually expected much out of Mitt Romney. I mean, the fact that Ann Coulter expected him to just summarily ignore his signature legislative accomplishment as governor of Massachusetts goes to show you what kind of respect they had for him as a politician. They weren't voting for someone who was governor of Massachusetts. They were voting for a vessel, I guess. And it's sad to say that Andrew Saul is going to take the brunt of this because on strict policy terms, she did not contradict the Romney message. The Romney message has always been that he passed a law as governor of Massachusetts for Massachusetts, not for the nation at whole. She said nothing that contradicted that message, but apparently the rules for the Republican Party are you can't even talk about Romney Care, and I think that's absurd.
You can't tell the truth. That's their message. And here's the thing. If Governor Romney had any credibility on any of these issues, if it wasn't for the fact that we've been talking about all the various things that he either won't answer, won't respond to, won't show us, is being very, non-transparent about, he would have more credibility, and therefore this problem of the lack of trust that the base of his own party actually has of him would be less of an issue, and a single comment by a spokesperson would be far less damaging. So Mitt Romney really needs to bear the brunt of this. I think Sam's right, though. They're going to make Andrea probably take the hit for it, but the candidate himself should bear a lot of the responsibility.
It's almost like they can't now make her take the hit from it, because if she's fired, it reflects very heavily on Mitt Romney as a manager and as someone who leads a campaign. I mean, what does it say about someone who would throw someone overboard for simply touting the virtues of a policy he passed? I think the bigger picture here is that there's always been this perception of Romney as someone who lacks any compass with respect to the legislation or the policies he espouses. And this is conservatives basically admitting that they don't trust him, and that the second that he starts talking about the stuff he's accomplished, stuff that they abhor, they're going to throw anyone overboard. It's just a very remarkable thing for Ann Coulter to say.
The other truth is that Mitt Romney is not having a very good summer. Sam Stein.
That's one other point, yes.
Sam Stein and Karen Finney, thank you both for your time.
No problem.